Before we dive in, a quick but important note. I am not a licensed insurance agent or financial advisor. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered financial, legal, or insurance advice. The world of insurance can be complex, and you should always consult with a qualified professional to discuss your own unique situation. Picture this for a second. You're driving down the Baltimore Beltway, maybe I-695 during that morning rush. You're in the middle lane just trying to get to work, listening to the radio when suddenly bam, the car behind you didn't stop in time. It's not a terrible accident, but you feel the jolt. You pull over to the shoulder, your heart is pounding, and you get out to check the damage. Your bumper is crunched. The other driver is apologetic. You exchange information, you take pictures, you do everything you're supposed to do. You think, okay, this is what I have insurance for. And that's when the real nightmare begins. You call your insurance company, and you're immediately hit with a tidal wave of jargon. They start throwing around terms like PIP, liability limits, subrogation, uninsured motorist coverage, and collision deductible. Feels like they're speaking a different language. You're on hold for what feels like an eternity, only to be transferred to someone else who asks you the same questions you just answered. A week goes by, and you're still not sure who is paying for what. Is the other driver's insurance covering it? Is yours? What about that soreness in your neck? Is that covered? You look at your policy declaration page, that piece of paper they send you every 6 months, and it might as well be written in ancient hieroglyphics. You see a bunch of numbers and abbreviations, but you have this sinking feeling in your gut that the policy you've been paying for month after month, year after year, might not actually protect you in the way you thought it would. Does any of this sound familiar? If it does, you are not alone. Millions of drivers in Maryland feel the exact same way. They feel confused, frustrated, and powerless when it comes to their own auto insurance. It feels like a necessary evil, a bill you have to pay because the law says so, but one you don't truly understand. And that lack of understanding is costing Marylanders a fortune. Not just in overpaying for coverage they don't need, but far more dangerously, in being critically underinsured when they need it most. This is not your fault. The system is confusing by design. But that ends today. This video series is your roadmap. It's your simple, no-nonsense guide to mastering Maryland auto insurance. We are going to pull back the curtain and demystify this entire process piece by piece. We're going to turn that confusing policy document into a tool you can use to protect your family and your finances. Over the next several parts, you are going to learn exactly what those coverages mean in plain English. You'll discover how to figure out how much you really need, not just the state minimum. We'll uncover the secrets to finding discounts you probably qualify for, but didn't even know existed. And we will walk you through step by step what to do in the first 24 hours after an accident to make sure you are in the strongest possible position. My goal is simple: to give you the knowledge and confidence to take control of your auto insurance. By the end of this series, you won't just be a passive customer paying a bill. You'll be an educated consumer who can walk into a conversation with an agent, compare quotes with confidence, and sleep soundly at night knowing that one of your biggest financial assets, your ability to earn an income and protect your family from financial disaster, is properly secured. So where do we start? We start with the most fundamental question of all. What even is insurance? Forget all the jargon for a minute. At its core, insurance is just one simple concept: risk transfer. Think about it like this. Every single time you get behind the wheel of your car, you are taking on a risk. It's a financial risk. There's a risk you could crash and do $5,000 of damage to your car. There's a risk you could accidentally hit a brand new Mercedes and be on the hook for $80,000 in repairs. And there's the truly terrifying risk that you could cause an accident that seriously injures someone, leading to medical bills, lost wages, and a lawsuit that could cost hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. That level of risk is enough to bankrupt almost anyone. The average American family can't just write a check for $100,000. So instead of carrying that massive, terrifying risk all by yourself, you transfer it. You pay an insurance company a relatively small, predictable amount of money each month, your premium, and in exchange, they agree to take on that giant, unpredictable financial risk for you. You're trading a small, certain cost for protection against a potentially catastrophic, uncertain loss. That's it. That's all insurance is. It's a team of people pooling their money together to help out whoever is unlucky enough to have a really bad day. Now, why is this especially important here in Maryland? Because our state has its own unique set of rules that can trip people up. We're not a no-fault state like Florida or Michigan. But we're not a purely traditional state either. Maryland has a unique system that includes something called Personal Injury Protection, or PIP, which is mandatory coverage that pays for your own medical bills after an accident, regardless of who was at fault. We also have very specific laws about what happens if you're hit by someone with no insurance or not enough insurance. And here's the kicker. Maryland follows a very harsh legal doctrine called contributory negligence. In simple terms, this means if you are found to be even 1% at fault for an accident, you can be barred from recovering any money at all from the other driver. 1%. This makes having the right coverage on your own policy absolutely critical. You can't just buy the cheapest policy you find online and assume you're good to go. The state minimum requirements are shockingly low and designed to protect other people from you, not to protect you and your own assets. Relying on the state minimum is like trying to protect your house from a hurricane with a single piece of plywood. It's just not enough. So, over the next parts, we will build your fortress of protection layer by layer. We're going to start with the absolute foundation of any auto insurance policy, the one part that protects you from losing everything you own in a lawsuit. I'm talking about liability coverage. What do those numbers like 30/60/15 actually mean in the real world? And how much do you, a Maryland driver, really need to be safe? The answer is going to surprise you, and it's the single most important decision you will make when it comes to your insurance. Let's get into it. That 30/60/15, it's not a secret code. It's a dollar amount, a promise from your insurance company, and it's a promise that's dangerously easy to break. Let's dissect it piece by piece, using a scenario that happens every single day on Maryland roads. The first number, 30, stands for $30,000. This is your bodily injury liability limit for one person. In simple terms, if you cause an accident and hurt someone, your insurance will pay up to $30,000 for that single person's medical bills, lost wages, and their pain and suffering. $30,000. Say it out loud. Does that sound like a lot of money? Maybe, but let's put it to the test. Imagine you're driving on the Baltimore Beltway during rush hour. Traffic suddenly slows. You're a little too close, a little too distracted, and you bump the car in front of you. It's not a huge crash, just a solid thud. You both pull over. The other driver, a man named Mark, says his neck hurts. An ambulance is called as a precaution. Right there, the clock starts ticking against your $30,000 limit. The ambulance ride to the hospital? That can be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. The emergency room visit, complete with a doctor's evaluation, a CT scan to check for serious injury, and some x-rays? You just spent another $5,000 to $8,000. We're already pushing 10 grand, and Mark hasn't even been discharged yet. The doctor diagnoses him with severe whiplash and a concussion. He's told to stay home from his construction job for 3 weeks. He makes about $1,500 a week. That's $4,500 in lost wages your insurance now has to cover. Then comes the follow-up. He needs to see an orthopedic specialist. That's a few $100s per visit. The specialist prescribes 12 weeks of physical therapy, 3 times a week, to regain his mobility. At an average of $100 per session, that's another $3,600. He might need prescription medications, a neck brace, maybe even injections for the pain. Let's add it up conservatively. $2,000 for the ambulance, $7,000 for the ER, $4,500 in lost wages, $3,600 for physical therapy. We are already at $17,100. And that's for a minor injury with no surgery, no broken bones, and no long-term complications. But what if the jolt from the crash herniated a disc in his back? That's a common injury. Now Mark needs surgery. The cost for a single-level spinal fusion can easily exceed $50,000. $50,000. Your policy limit is $30,000. Your insurance company writes a check for 30 grand, wishes you the best of luck, and they are done. Their legal obligation is fulfilled. But Mark's medical bills are $50,000, plus his lost wages, plus his physical therapy. He's out at least another $25,000 or $30,000. Where does that money come from? Comes from you. Mark's attorney will send you a letter, and then they will file a lawsuit. They will come after your savings account. They will come after your investments. They can put a lien on your house, forcing a sale to pay the debt. They can get a court order to garnish your wages, taking a chunk of your paycheck every single week for years, or even decades until that debt is paid. Your entire financial future, derailed by one moment, All because you relied on a $30,000 limit that can be wiped out by a single ambulance ride and one common surgery. That's the first number. Now let's look at the second number, 60. This is your $60,000 bodily injury liability limit per accident. This is the absolute most your insurance company will pay for injuries to everyone you hurt in a single crash combined. It is not $60,000 for each person. It's $60,000 total to be split among all the victims. Let's go back to that Beltway accident. But this time Mark wasn't alone. His wife Jessica was in the passenger seat. She broke her wrist in the impact and also suffered whiplash. Her costs start piling up too. The ER visit, the cast, the follow-up appointments, her own course of physical therapy. Let's say her total medical bills come to a very reasonable $20,000. Meanwhile, Mark's back injury still costs $50,000. So, between the two of them, you have caused $70,000 in medical bills. Your policy has a $60,000 total limit. You are already $10,000 in the hole, and that's before we even talk about their pain and suffering, or their lost wages. Now, how does the insurance company pay this out? They don't just pay the first $60,000 in bills. Remember the per-person limit? They will pay Mark his $30,000 maximum. They will pay Jessica her $20,000, since that's below the $30,000 per person limit. The total paid out is $50,000. Mark is still owed $20,000 for his surgery. Who pays? You do. Now imagine it wasn't a couple. Imagine you swerve on a wet road and hit a minivan carrying a family of 4. The father has a broken leg. The mother has a concussion. The 2 kids in the back have injuries too. The medical bills for all 4 of them could easily reach $100,000, $200,000, even $300,000. Your insurance company will pay a maximum of $60,000 to be divided amongst 4 injured people. After that, you are on your own against a mountain of debt that could bankrupt you and follow you for the rest of your life. That $60,000 limit, which sounds so much better than 30, is practically meaningless in a multi-person accident. Which brings us to the final and in some ways the most dangerously low number 15. $15,000. This is your property damage liability limit. This is the maximum your policy will pay for any property you destroy in an accident. Usually this means the other person's car, but it could also be a mailbox, a light pole, or the front of a building. $15,000. In 1997, when these limits were set, the average price of a new car was about $19,000. 15 grand could probably replace most cars on the road. But this isn't 1997. Today, the average price of a new car in the United States is over $48,000. Let's go back to our simple fender bender. You hit Mark's car. Let's say he drives a 5-year-old Toyota Camry. The repair estimate comes back. The rear bumper needs to be replaced. But that bumper has backup sensors embedded in it. The trunk lid is dented. One of the taillight assemblies, which are now complex LED units, is cracked. The estimate with parts, paint, and labor is $6,000. Your $15,000 limit covers it. You breathe a sigh of relief. But what if Mark wasn't driving a Camry? What if he was driving a brand new Ford F-150? Or a Tesla Model 3? The delicate sensors, the aluminum body panels, the specialized battery components. A seemingly minor rear-end collision on one of these vehicles can result in a repair bill that easily tops $20,000 or $25,000. Your insurance pays the first $15,000. You get a bill for the other $10,000. What if you don't just damage the car? What if you total it? You slide on ice and T-bone a brand new Chevy Tahoe at an intersection. The vehicle is a total loss. Its value is $65,000. Your insurance pays $15,000. You are now personally on the hook for $50,000. 50 grand for the car alone. This is completely separate from any injuries the driver may have suffered. This is the reality of Maryland State Minimum Insurance. It's a policy that makes you legal to drive, but leaves you functionally uninsured in any kind of moderate accident involving a modern car, or more than one person. It's a financial trap, a ticking time bomb in your glove compartment. It gives the illusion of protection while exposing you, your family, your home, and your future to catastrophic risk. So if 30/60/15 is a trap, what's the solution? How much coverage is actually enough? Do you need to double it? Triple it? Do you need $1 million of coverage? And most importantly, how much more does real protection actually cost? You're going to be shocked at how affordable peace of mind can be. We're going to break down the exact liability numbers that insurance insiders recommend for the average Maryland driver, And it's probably not what you think. That's next. So let's talk numbers. The real numbers. Not the bare minimum. Check the box numbers the state of Maryland says you need. I'm talking about the numbers that will actually protect you, your family, and everything you've worked for. First, let's refresh. The state minimum liability coverage in Maryland is what we call a 30/60/15 policy. That's $30,000 for bodily injury to one person, $60,000 total for bodily injury to everyone in the other car, and a measly $15,000 for property damage. Let me be brutally honest. This is not insurance. This is a permission slip to legally drive your car. It is a financial time bomb waiting to go off. Relying on state minimum coverage is like trying to stop a house fire with a water pistol. It might make you feel like you're doing something, but in the end, everything is going to burn. Let's paint a picture. It's a completely normal Tuesday morning. You're driving on the Baltimore Beltway I-695, maybe heading towards Towson. Traffic is doing its usual stop-and-go dance. You're listening to a podcast, thinking about that first cup of coffee at the office. You glance down for just a second to check your navigation. 1 second. That's all it takes. When you look up, the brake lights in front of you are blazing red. You slam on your brakes, but it's too late. You rear-end the car in front of you, a brand new Lexus SUV. Everyone seems okay, just shaken up. You exchange information. The police come, a report is filed. You go home feeling rattled, but relieved nobody was hurt. You call your insurance company, the one you pay every month for your 30/60/15 policy. You did the right thing. You're covered, right? A week later, the first letter arrives. It's from the body shop. The estimate to repair the Lexus is $28,000. Modern cars are packed with sensors, cameras, and computers, especially in the bumpers. A minor fender bender isn't minor anymore. Your policy only covers $15,000 in property damage. That means you are personally on the hook for the remaining $13,000. Right out of your pocket. Your savings account? Gone. But it gets worse. A month after that, a much scarier letter arrives. This one is from a law firm. It turns out the driver of the Lexus, the one who said they were fine at the scene, started having severe neck and back pain the next day. It's a classic whiplash injury, but it's very real. They've been to the emergency room, seen an orthopedic specialist, and are now in physical therapy 3 times a week. They can't work their construction job. The letter details their medical bills so far, $42,000. And it lists their lost wages, $10,000 and counting. They are demanding $52,000. Your state minimum policy covers $30,000 for bodily injury to one person. That means after your insurance pays its limit, you are personally responsible for the other $22,000. So let's add it up. $13,000 for the car, $22,000 for the medical bills. That's a $35,000 bill that just landed on your kitchen table because you looked down for 1 second. And that's a simple, best-case scenario accident. What if there had been a passenger in that Lexus who was also injured? Your policy has a $60,000 total limit for all injuries. If 2 people have $35,000 claims each, totaling $70,000, your $60,000 policy runs out fast, and you're left holding the $10,000 bag on top of the property damage. This is how people lose their homes. This is how wages are garnished for years. This is how one tiny mistake on the road leads to complete financial ruin. All because they had the legal amount of insurance instead of the right amount. So what is the right amount? What do the insiders, the agents who see these claims every day, recommend? The absolute starting point for responsible coverage should be $100/300/100. Let's break that down. $100,000 for property damage. Think about the cars on the road with you on I-95 or the Jones Falls Expressway. Teslas, BMWs, new F-150s. A $15,000 policy doesn't even cover a new Toyota Corolla anymore. $100,000 covers the replacement cost of the vast majority of vehicles on the road. It means if you cause a multi-car pileup, you have a realistic pool of money to fix the damage you caused. Next, the $100,000 and $300,000 for bodily injury. That's $100,000 per person, up to a total of $300,000 for everyone in the accident. Why this much? Because a simple ambulance ride and an ER visit can cost $10,000. A broken arm requiring surgery can easily hit $50,000. A serious injury can soar into the hundreds of thousands with shocking speed. $100,000 per person is not overkill. It's a realistic buffer against modern medical costs. It's the difference between your insurance company handling the claim and a lawyer sending you a summons to court. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds expensive. Jumping from 30/60/15 to 100/300/100 must cost a fortune. And this is the most important secret I can share with you. The price difference is shockingly small. The biggest part of your insurance premium pays for that initial base level of risk. Each additional layer of coverage costs incrementally less. For many drivers, going from the dangerously low state minimums to a robust 100/300/100 policy might only cost an extra $15 to $30 a month. That's it. For the price of a few fancy coffees or a Netflix subscription, you can buy a fortress of protection that literally saves you from financial devastation. It is the single best investment you can make in your own peace of mind. But we're only halfway done building our fortress. So far, we've only talked about the damage you cause to other people. What happens when someone hits you? Let's go back to our beltway scenario. But this time you do everything right. You're paying attention, keeping a safe distance. And the driver behind you, the one texting their friend, doesn't stop. They slam into you. Your car is wrecked. Your back is injured. It's clearly their fault. But when you get their insurance information, you discover they have, you guessed it, state minimum coverage. Or even worse, they have no insurance at all. It's estimated that 1 in 8 drivers on the road is uninsured. In Maryland, that's hundreds of thousands of cars. So who pays for your medical bills? Who pays for your lost wages? Who compensates you for your pain and suffering? The other driver's tiny policy won't. If they have no insurance, you're completely out of luck. You can sue them personally, sure, but you can't get blood from a stone. If they can't afford proper insurance, they certainly can't afford to pay a $50,000 judgment. This is where the most important coverage for protecting you and your family comes into play. It's called Uninsured and Underinsured Motorist Coverage, or UM/UIM. This is the coverage that steps in and acts like the other driver's insurance when they don't have any, or don't have enough. It pays for your medical bills, your lost wages, your suffering when you are the victim. And here's the simple, unbreakable rule. Your uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage should always mirror your liability coverage. If you have 100/300 in liability to protect others, you need 100/300 in UM/UIM to protect yourself. It makes no sense to value a stranger's health more than your own or your family's. If you decide that $300,000 is the right amount of protection in case you injure a family in another car, then that is the exact amount of protection you should have in case someone injures your family. It's that simple. And just like with liability, adding this crucial protection is incredibly affordable. So we've built the financial fortress around you. We've protected your house, your savings, and your future from lawsuits with proper liability coverage. And we've protected you and your passengers from the mistakes of others with matching uninsured motorist coverage. But what about the car itself? Your car. The one you rely on to get to work, to get your kids to school. The one you're still making payments on. How do you protect that hunk of metal and technology sitting in your driveway? That's where the next critical pieces of the puzzle come in. Collision and comprehensive coverage. And the way you should think about these coverages has completely changed. There are simple questions you can ask yourself that will tell you exactly what you need and could save you hundreds of dollars a year. We'll break down that exact formula next. Okay, that old way of thinking about insurance, just picking a number off a list, is officially dead. The new way, the smart way, is to build your policy around your actual life. Starts with 2 simple questions. Question 1. What do I have to lose? And question 2. How would my life change if I couldn't work? Your answers to those 2 questions will build the entire foundation of your auto policy and tell you exactly what you need. Let's start with question 1. What do I have to lose? This question is all about your liability coverage. Remember, bodily injury and property damage liability isn't for you. It doesn't pay for your medical bills. It doesn't fix your car. It pays for the damage you cause to other people. It's a shield that protects your assets, your savings, your home, your future income from being taken in a lawsuit after an accident you cause. The Maryland state minimum is $30,000 for one person's injuries, $60,000 for all injuries in an accident, and $15,000 for property damage. Let me be brutally honest, for 99% of people, that is a catastrophically low amount of coverage. Imagine this scenario. You're driving on the Baltimore Beltway. You glance down at your phone for just a second, and when you look up, traffic has stopped. You slam into the back of a new Mercedes. The driver has a whiplash injury that requires surgery and months of physical therapy. Their medical bills hit $80,000. They were a consultant earning a good living, but now they can't work for 6 months, so they have over $50,000 in lost wages. Your policy's $30,000 limit for bodily injury? It's gone in an instant. You are now personally on the hook for the remaining $100,000. The $15,000 property damage limit? That brand new Mercedes costs $90,000 to replace. Your policy pays the first $15,000. You are now being sued for the other $75,000. In a single moment, you are facing a lawsuit for $175,000 that you personally have to pay. They will go after your savings account. They will put a lien on your house. They will garnish your wages for years, maybe even decades. All because you tried to save $20 a month on your car insurance. So when you ask, what do I have to lose? You're taking inventory. Do you own a home? You need to protect the equity in it. Do you have a 401k or a savings account? That's what you stand to lose. Do you have a good job with a solid income? Your future earnings are at risk. The state minimum is for someone with literally nothing to their name. If that's not you, you need more. So what's the right number? A good starting point for many people is $100,000 in bodily injury per person, $300,000 per accident, and $100,000 in property damage. We call this 100/300/100. If you own a home or have significant savings, you should be looking at 250/500/100 as your absolute minimum. This isn't about being reckless. It's about being realistic. A single moderate accident can easily exceed those lower limits. And if you have a net worth over $250,000, you should be talking to your agent about an umbrella policy, which is a cheap way to buy an extra $1 million or more in liability protection. The first question is about protecting what you've built. Now for the second question, and this one is about protecting you. How would my life change if I couldn't work? This is where uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage comes in. We call it UM/UIM. This is the mirror image of liability. It kicks in when someone else hits you, and they either have no insurance at all, or they have those ridiculously low state minimum limits that don't even begin to cover your damages. Think about it. You were responsible, you bought high liability limits to protect your assets from others. Shouldn't you have the same level of protection for yourself when someone else is at fault? Let's go back to that Beltway crash, but let's flip it. This time, you're the one in the Mercedes sitting in traffic, and someone with no assets and a state minimum policy slams into you. Your medical bills are $80,000. You're out of work for 6 months, losing $50,000 in income. The at-fault driver's policy pays you their $30,000 limit. That's it. That's all they have. Where does the other $100,000 come from? You could sue them personally, but they have nothing to give. You can't get blood from a stone. This is where your own policy saves you. Your underinsured motorist coverage steps in and acts like the policy the other driver should have had. It covers the massive gap between their tiny policy and your actual damages. It pays your remaining medical bills. It replaces your lost income. It compensates you for your pain and suffering. Without it, you are left holding the bag for someone else's mistake. In Maryland, it's estimated that 1 in 7 drivers is on the road with no insurance. 1 in 7. That means every time you're at a traffic light with 6 other cars, there's a good chance one of them has no way to pay for your injuries if they hit you. This coverage isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. The rule here is incredibly simple. Your UM/UIM limits should always match your bodily injury liability limits. If you decided you need 250/500 to protect your assets, then you absolutely need 250/500 to protect your own health, your family, and your ability to earn a living. Don't let an agent talk you into lowering this to save a few bucks. It is one of the most important coverages you can buy. Finally, there's a unique piece of the Maryland puzzle called personal injury protection, or PIP. This is your first line of defense. PIP is no-fault coverage. That means it pays out for medical expenses and lost wages immediately after an accident, regardless of who was at fault. You don't have to wait for lawyers to argue or for insurance companies to assign blame. You go to the doctor, you submit the bill to your own insurance company, and it gets paid up to your policy limit. In Maryland, you're required to be offered at least $2,500 in PIP coverage. Here's the critical part. You can also sign a waiver to reject this coverage to save a little money on your premium. This is almost always a terrible, terrible idea. When an agent asks if you want to waive PIP, what they're really asking is, would you like to pay your medical bills out of pocket after an accident, and then hope you can get the money back from the at-fault driver's insurance company a year from now? Because that's the reality. Without PIP, you're relying on your health insurance, which has deductibles and copays. And your health insurance isn't going to pay you for the 2 weeks of work you missed. PIP does. It provides up to 85% of your lost income. Having that $2,500 or more available instantly for medical bills and lost wages is a financial lifesaver that prevents a car accident from immediately turning into a financial crisis. For the small cost, keeping full PIP coverage is one of the smartest decisions you can make on your Maryland auto policy. So we've covered how to protect yourself from others and how to protect yourself when others can't pay. But what about the single biggest asset involved in most accidents? Your car. How do you decide if it's worth insuring the metal itself? The answer is surprisingly simple, and it has nothing to do with the Blue Book value. It's a trap we all fall into. We look up our car's trade-in value, see a number like $4,000 and think, why am I paying $800 a year to insure something worth so little? Feels like a bad deal. But that's because we're asking the wrong question. The value of your car is a vanity metric. It's a number that feels important, but is actually a distraction from the real issue. The real question isn't, what is my car worth? The real question is, if I walked out to my driveway tomorrow and my car was gone, totaled, stolen, vanished, what would happen to my life? Would it be a minor inconvenience or a full-blown financial catastrophe? Answering that question honestly is the key to understanding the two most misunderstood coverages on your policy: collision and comprehensive. Let's break them down. They're often bundled together and sold under the slang term full coverage, but they are two completely different products that protect your car from different kinds of harm. First, you have collision coverage. The name says it all. This is the coverage that pays to repair or replace your car if it's damaged in a collision with another object. That object is usually another car, but it could also be a telephone pole you backed into, a guardrail you scraped, or even a pothole that destroys your axle. The key word is collision. If your car is moving and it hits something or something hits it, this is the coverage that kicks in. And crucially, it pays out regardless of who is at fault. If you cause the accident, your collision coverage fixes your car. If someone else hits you and they're uninsured, your collision coverage fixes your car. It's your car's personal bodyguard against the physics of impact. Then you have its partner, comprehensive coverage. This is a bit of a misnomer because it's not actually comprehensive in the way we normally use the word. The official insurance name is other than collision, which is far more accurate if a little clunky. This coverage is for almost every other bad thing that can happen to your car that isn't a collision. A tree branch falls on it during a Maryland thunderstorm. A deer decides to play chicken on I-70 and loses. Your car is stolen from the parking garage at Arundel Mills. Someone keys it out of spite. Catches fire. It gets flooded. All of these strange, unfortunate, and unpredictable events are what comprehensive is for. It's the act of God and act of jerk coverage. When an agent or an online quote asks if you want full coverage, they're simply asking if you want to buy both collision and comprehensive. It's not an official insurance term, and it definitely does not mean everything is covered. It just means you have the primary coverages to protect the physical value of your vehicle itself. So now we get to the million-dollar question, or more accurately, the $4,000 car question. When should you pay for these coverages and when should you drop them? The common advice is terrible. People will tell you, oh, just drop full coverage once the car is paid off. Or, if the car is more than 10 years old, get rid of it. This is lazy, one-size-fits-all advice that could financially ruin you. Why? Because it completely ignores your personal financial situation. Let's imagine two people. We'll call them Sarah and Mark. Both live in Maryland. Both drive the exact same car. A 2014 Honda Accord in good condition, with a fair market value of about $7,000. On paper, their insurance needs for this car should be identical, but they're not. Sarah is a 24-year-old graduate student at Towson University. She works part-time at a coffee shop to make ends meet. She has about $500 in her savings account for emergencies. That $7,000 Honda is her single most valuable asset. She needs it to get to her classes, to her job, and to visit her family in Frederick. For Sarah, that car isn't just a machine. It's her lifeline. It's her economic engine. Mark is a 55-year-old architect living in Potomac. That 2014 Honda Accord is his beater car. He uses it to commute to the train station so his expensive luxury SUV can stay pristine in the garage. Mark has a healthy retirement account, a 6-month emergency fund, and significant disposable income. Now let's say they both get their insurance renewal. The annual cost to add collision and comprehensive to their policies is $900. Mark looks at that number and does the simple math. He's paying $900 to protect a $7,000 asset. He thinks, if I total this car tomorrow, I'd be annoyed, but I could go to a dealership this weekend and write a check for a new, reliable used car without even blinking. It wouldn't impact my budget, my investments, or my lifestyle in any meaningful way. For Mark, paying that $900 is a bad bet. He's better off self-insuring. He can take that $900 he saves every year and put it in an investment account. Over a few years, he'll have saved more than the car is even worth. For Mark, dropping collision and comprehensive is the smartest financial move he can make. Now let's look at Sarah. She sees the same $900 premium. That's a huge expense for her. It's nearly 2 months of savings. The temptation to drop it and save that money is immense. But then she asks the critical question. If my car was totaled tomorrow, what would happen? The answer is terrifying. She would lose her job because she couldn't get there. She might have to drop out of school. She'd have to scramble to find $7,000, which she absolutely does not have. She'd be forced to take out a high-interest personal loan, putting her in debt for years, all just to get back to where she was yesterday. For Sarah, that $900 premium isn't just protecting a car. It's protecting her entire life. It's a catastrophe avoidance plan. It's the best money she can possibly spend, because it transfers the risk of financial ruin from her shoulders to the insurance companies. Do you see the difference? The car is the same. The value is the same. The premium is the same. The only thing that's different is the owner's ability to absorb a financial shock. The decision to carry physical damage coverage has almost nothing to do with the car, and everything to do with your bank account. So, here is the simple honest-to-goodness test. Look at your emergency fund right now. If your car were destroyed in an accident today, do you have enough cash on hand to go out and buy a reliable replacement vehicle without derailing your financial goals or going into debt? If the answer is a confident yes, then you can seriously consider dropping collision and comprehensive. If the answer is no, or maybe but it would wipe me out, then you absolutely need to keep them no matter how old the car is or what the Blue Book value says. This same logic applies to choosing your deductible. The deductible is the amount of money you have to pay out of pocket before the insurance company pays a dime. For both collision and comprehensive, you'll choose a deductible, typically ranging from $250 to $2,000. A higher deductible means you're taking on more of the initial risk, so the insurance company rewards you with a lower premium. A lower deductible means the insurance company is on the hook for more, so your premium will be higher. People often get paralyzed here trying to game the system. Don't. The choice is simple. Your deductible should be an amount that you have readily available in your emergency fund. Period. Don't pick a $1,000 deductible to save $80 a year on your premium if you don't actually have $1,000 you can part with on a moment's notice. You'll end up putting the repair bill on a credit card, and the interest you pay will wipe out any premium savings you thought you had. Conversely, if you have a healthy emergency fund, why pay the higher premium for a $250 deductible? You're essentially paying the insurance company extra money to protect you from a small expense you could easily handle yourself. Pick a deductible that matches your emergency fund. A $500 or $1,000 deductible is a sweet spot for most people who are financially prepared. So we've protected your car from physical harm. You've made a smart, personalized decision based on your own finances, not on some generic, outdated rule of thumb. But a major accident creates more problems than just a dented fender. Your car could be in the repair shop for 2, 3, even 4 weeks. How do you get to work? How do you take your kids to school? You still need to live your life, and that requires a car. So who pays for that? The answer leads us to one of the cheapest, yet most valuable, add-ons you can get on your policy, and it's one that far too many people skip. It's called rental reimbursement, and it is, without a doubt, the single most underrated and overpowered coverage you can add to your policy for the price. Think about the last time you rented a car, even for a day. It wasn't cheap, was it? Now imagine your car is crunched. It's not totaled, but it's going to be in the body shop for a while. Let's say the initial estimate is 2 weeks. But then the shop calls. We're waiting on a specific sensor that's on backorder from the manufacturer. Suddenly, 2 weeks turns into 3, then 4. All the while, the clock is ticking. You still have to get to work. You still have to pick up groceries. The kids still have soccer practice. Life doesn't just pause because your car is out of commission. So what do? You could drain your savings on Ubers and Lyfts, watching the bill climb higher every single day. You could try to borrow a car from a friend or family member, straining relationships and juggling schedules. Or you could have paid what often amounts to less than $5 a month for rental reimbursement coverage. For the price of a single latte, you can have the peace of mind of knowing that if your car is in the shop for a covered claim, your insurance company will pay for a rental car. Let's break down exactly how this works because the details matter. Rental reimbursement coverage is an optional add-on to your policy that pays for a rental vehicle while your car is being repaired after an accident or other covered event, like a theft or a fire. The key phrase there is covered event. This isn't for when your car is in the shop for a routine oil change or because the transmission decided to give up the ghost on its own. It has to be tied to a claim you file under your collision or comprehensive coverage. When you buy this coverage, you choose a daily limit and a maximum total limit. A very common option you'll see is something like 30 of 900. This sounds like insurance jargon, but it's simple. It means the policy will pay up to $30 per day for a rental, for a maximum of 30 days, or until you hit a total of $900, whichever comes first. So, if your rental is exactly $30 a day, you get it for a full 30 days. If you need a more expensive rental that costs $45 a day, that $900 limit means you'd be covered for 20 days. Now you might be thinking, $30 a day? Can I even get a car for that anymore? And that is a fantastic question. The answer, in most parts of Maryland today, is a resounding probably not. A few years ago, $30 might have gotten you a basic compact car. But with inflation and the massive spike in rental car prices, that $30 a day limit might leave you paying a significant chunk out of your own pocket every single day. This is where a lot of people make a mistake. They see rental reimbursement, they check the box for the cheapest option, and they think they're covered. But they haven't actually checked what it costs to rent a car in their area. This is why you need to be an active consumer of your own insurance policy. Don't just take the default. Call a local enterprise or Hertz and ask what their daily rate is for a mid-size sedan. It's probably closer to $50 or $60 a day, maybe more. Now go back to your insurance quote. Look at the difference in premium between the $30 a day coverage and, say, a $50 a day option. Often the difference is minuscule. We're talking maybe $1 or $2 a month. For an extra $12 to $24 a year, you can double your daily rental benefit and completely eliminate that out-of-pocket expense and the stress that comes with it. If you drive an SUV or a truck and you need a similar vehicle to fit your family or your work gear, you absolutely need to be looking at the higher limits, like $60 or even $75 a day. The small additional premium is one of the best investments you can possibly make. Think about the math. Let's say your car is in the shop for just 10 days. A $50 a day rental will cost you $500. If you only have the $30 a day coverage, you're on the hook for the extra $20 a day, which is $200 out of your pocket. The higher coverage tier might have cost you an extra $15 for the entire year. You would have saved $185, all because you took 5 minutes to choose the right limit. Now there's another side to this coin. What if the accident wasn't your fault? Shouldn't the other person's insurance pay for your rental car? The answer is yes, they absolutely should. This is called a loss of use claim against the at-fault party. However, dealing with someone else's insurance company can be a slow, frustrating process. They might argue about the daily rate they're willing to approve. They might delay the approval process while their investigation is ongoing. All the while, you're the one without a car. This is the hidden power of having your own rental reimbursement coverage. Gives you immediate control. You can file the claim with your own company, get into a rental car the very next day, and let your life continue with minimal disruption. Then, your insurance company will go after the other driver's insurance to get that money back through a process called subrogation. You get the convenience and speed of using your own policy, and in the end your company gets reimbursed, so it often doesn't even count against you. You use your coverage as a bridge to get you through the immediate crisis, and let the billion-dollar insurance companies fight it out on the back end. That's what you pay them for. And let's be realistic about repair times in today's world. The 30-day maximum used to seem like more than enough time for any repair. Not anymore. With global supply chain disruptions, a single microchip or a specific plastic bumper component can be backordered for weeks, or even months. Body shops are often booked solid. It is no longer uncommon for repairs on a moderately damaged vehicle to take well over a month. So when you're selecting your coverage, that 30-day limit is something to be very aware of. Some companies are starting to offer extended periods, and it's worth asking about. So the takeaway here is simple. Rental reimbursement is not a luxury. In a state like Maryland where a car is a necessity for most people, it's a foundational piece of a solid insurance policy. It's an incredibly cheap add-on that can save you from immense financial and logistical headaches. Do yourself a favor. Pull up your current policy right now. See if you have this coverage. If you do, check the limits. Call your local rental agency, find out the real-world costs for a car you'd actually need, and then call your insurance agent and spend the extra couple of dollars a month to get the coverage that truly protects you. It's one of the highest value, lowest cost decisions you can make. Now, we've covered what happens when you damage your own car and how to keep yourself on the road. But we've been operating under a huge assumption. We've been assuming that if another driver hits you, they actually have insurance to pay for the damage they caused. But what happens when the car that plows into you is driven by someone with no insurance at all? Or, almost as bad, they have the bare minimum coverage that can be exhausted after fixing a single headlight on a modern car? This is a terrifyingly common scenario, and it's where the next two coverages we're going to talk about become the absolute saviors of your financial life. Uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Let's call it UM/UIM for short. This is your personal financial bodyguard. It steps in when the person who hits you and injures you either has zero insurance, or they have that bare-bones state minimum policy we just talked about. Let's play out a scenario. You're driving home on the Baltimore Beltway. Traffic is moving. Suddenly, a car swerves into your lane, sideswiping you and sending you into the guardrail. It's a bad one. The other driver is clearly at fault. The police come, a report is filed. You're taken to the hospital with a broken arm and serious whiplash. Your car is a wreck. Few days later, you get the call. The other driver? They let their insurance lapse 2 months ago. They have no coverage. Absolutely nothing. So, who pays for your $50,000 in medical bills? Who pays for the weeks of physical therapy you'll need? Who covers the wages you're losing because you can't work your construction job with a broken arm? And who is going to pay to fix or replace your mangled car? Without uninsured motorist coverage, the answer is terrifyingly simple. You do. It all comes out of your pocket. The person who caused all this pain and financial devastation has no assets, no insurance. They're a ghost. You can sue them, sure. But as the old saying goes, you can't get blood from a stone. You're left holding the bag for an accident you didn't even cause. This is not some 1 in a million scenario. The Insurance Research Council estimates that 1 in 8 drivers on the road is uninsured. In Maryland, that's hundreds of thousands of drivers you share the road with every single day. This is where your uninsured motorist coverage swoops in like a superhero. It essentially allows you to file a claim against your own policy, as if you were filing against the at-fault driver's insurance that should have existed. Your insurance company pays for your injuries and damages, and then they take on the legal headache of trying to get that money back from the uninsured driver. You get your medical bills paid, your lost wages covered, and your life put back together without going bankrupt. Now there are 2 parts to this. There's uninsured motorist bodily injury, or UMBI. This covers the human cost, your medical bills, your passengers' medical bills, pain and suffering, and lost income. Then there's uninsured motorist property damage, or UMPD, which covers the damage to your car. But let's not forget the underinsured part of the name. This is just as important. Let's go back to our Beltway accident. But this time, the at-fault driver does have insurance. They have the Maryland state minimum, $30,000 for bodily injury. But your medical bills alone are $50,000, plus you've lost another $10,000 in wages. That's $60,000 in losses. The other driver's policy pays out its maximum of $30,000. What about the other $30,000 you're still on the hook for? This is where your underinsured motorist coverage kicks in. If you have, say, $100,000 of UIM coverage, your policy will step in and cover that $30,000 gap left by the other driver's inadequate policy. It fills in the difference up to your own policy limit. This is why the advice to match your liability limits is so critical. If you have $100,000/$300,000 in liability coverage to protect others from you, you should have the exact same $100,000/$300,000 in UM/UIM coverage to protect you from others. You are effectively buying protection for yourself that's just as good as the protection you're required to buy for everyone else. Why would you ever value your own well-being less than a stranger's? Okay, so that's the first savior. It protects you from the financial irresponsibility of other drivers. But what about the immediate aftermath of a crash? UM/UIM claims can take time to settle. especially if fault is disputed or injuries are severe. But the ambulance company wants to be paid now. The hospital emergency room wants its money now. You need cash to cover your health insurance deductible now. Who covers those immediate, upfront costs, regardless of who was at fault? This brings us to the second absolute, non-negotiable, must-have coverage on your Maryland auto policy. Personal injury protection, or as everyone calls it, PIP. PIP is a form of no-fault insurance, and it is one of the most beautiful and beneficial coverages you can have. No fault means exactly what it sounds like. It pays out for your medical expenses and lost wages up to your policy limit, no matter who caused the accident. Even if you were 100% at fault, you ran a red light, you rear-ended someone, your PIP coverage is there for you, for your family members in the car with you, and for any passengers. Think about it. You get in a crash. Your first concern shouldn't be, how am I going to pay for this ambulance ride? It should be, am I okay? PIP is the coverage that lets you focus on your health first. In Maryland, the minimum amount of PIP you must be offered is $2,500. This money is designed to be paid out quickly and without hassle. It covers medical bills, dental, and even a percentage of your lost wages if you can't work. It's your immediate financial first aid kit. It bridges the gap while the bigger, more complicated liability and UM/UIM claims are being investigated and settled. Now, here is the most important thing I will say about PIP in Maryland, and I need you to listen very carefully. Insurance companies in Maryland are legally required to offer you this coverage. However, they are also legally allowed to let you reject it in writing to save a few dollars on your premium. You will be presented with something called a PIP waiver. Signing this waiver is, without a doubt, one of the single biggest financial mistakes a Maryland driver can make. Let me be crystal clear. You should never ever, under any circumstances, waive your PIP coverage. The amount of money you save is laughably small, maybe a few bucks a month. But the benefit you are giving up is enormous. You are trading a massive financial safety net for the cost of a cup of coffee. It's like removing the fire extinguisher from your kitchen to save a few square inches of space. It's a risk that makes absolutely no sense. When you have an accident, your health insurance might have a $5,000 deductible. How are you going to pay that out of pocket right now? PIP can cover it. Your health insurance doesn't cover lost wages. PIP does. It provides immediate cash flow when you are injured and vulnerable. Waiving it is an act of pure financial self-sabotage. If an agent or an insurance company ever encourages you to waive PIP to get a cheaper quote, you should seriously question if they have your best interests at heart. Always take the PIP. Always. So let's recap these two lifesavers. Uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage protects you from the financial fallout caused by irresponsible drivers who have little or no insurance. It's your shield against the carelessness of others. And personal injury protection is your immediate medical and financial first aid kit, paying out quickly regardless of who is at fault, ensuring you can get the care you need without delay. Together, they form a defensive wall around your health and your savings. Now your body is protected. Your bank account is protected from irresponsible drivers. You're covered for the immediate medical aftermath. But we've been talking a lot about injuries and lawsuits. We haven't spent much time on the single biggest asset most of us have sitting in our driveway: the car itself. What happens if you cause the accident and wreck your own car? What happens if a tree limb falls on it during a thunderstorm? Or a deer jumps out on a country road? Or you walk out of the mall to find your car has been stolen? None of the coverages we've discussed so far will pay a single penny to fix or replace your car in those situations. For that, you need two completely different types of protection, and they are arguably the most commonly misunderstood parts of any auto policy. These two coverages are called collision and comprehensive, and if you have a loan on your car, you're almost certainly already paying for them. But do you actually know what they do? Let's break it down, because understanding this difference can save you thousands of dollars and an incredible amount of heartache. Think of them as two different types of physical shields for your car. First, let's talk about the big one, collision coverage. The name is pretty straightforward. This coverage pays to repair or replace your car if it's damaged in a collision with another object. That object is usually another vehicle, but it also includes things like hitting a telephone pole, a guardrail, a building, or even flipping your car over in an accident. The most important thing to understand about collision coverage is that it pays out regardless of who is at fault. Let that sink in. If you cause the accident, your collision coverage fixes your car. If the other person causes the accident, your collision coverage can still fix your car. And then your insurance company will go after the other driver's insurance to get their money back. Why is this so critical? Imagine you're on the Baltimore Beltway during rush hour. Traffic comes to a sudden stop, and the car behind you doesn't react in time. Bam! They slam into your rear bumper. It's clearly their fault. You exchange information, but a week later you get a call. Turns out the driver who hit you let their insurance lapse. They have no coverage. Zero. Or maybe they have the bare minimum Maryland liability coverage, and your car is a brand new SUV with $20,000 in damage, far exceeding their property damage limit. Without collision coverage, you are in a nightmare scenario. Your only real option is to sue the other driver personally. Good luck with that. It could take months or even years, and you might never see a dime, all while your car is either undrivable or you're stuck paying for the repairs out of your own pocket. But with collision coverage, the story is completely different. You just call your own insurance company. You tell them what happened. They'll assess the damage and they will cut you a check for the repairs. It's clean, it's simple, and it gets you back on the road. Now there's a key component to collision coverage you need to understand: the deductible. The deductible is the amount of money you have to pay out of pocket before your insurance coverage kicks in. It's your share of the cost. Deductibles typically range from $250 to $1,000, or even more. Let's say you have a $500 deductible. You get into an accident that causes $4,000 in damage to your car. You pay the first $500 directly to the body shop, and your insurance company pays the remaining $3,500. If the damage is less than your deductible, say only $400, then you just pay for it yourself because the insurance wouldn't pay anything. Choosing your deductible is a balancing act. A higher deductible means you're taking on more financial risk yourself, so the insurance company rewards you with a lower premium. A lower deductible means the insurance company is on the hook for more of the cost, so your premium will be higher. A good rule of thumb is to select the highest deductible you can comfortably afford to pay at a moment's notice without causing a financial crisis. If coming up with $1,000 for a repair would be a disaster for your budget, then a lower deductible might be the smarter, albeit more expensive choice. So that's collision. Covers you when you hit something. But what about all the other ways a car can be damaged? What about theft, vandalism, or one of Maryland's most famous road hazards? That's where the second shield comes in: comprehensive coverage. Sometimes you'll hear it called other than collision coverage, which is actually a perfect description. It covers damage to your car from basically anything other than a collision. This is your protection against fire, theft, vandalism, falling objects like a tree branch, hail, flooding, and, critically for anyone driving outside the city limits in Maryland, hitting an animal. That's right. Hitting a deer, which is an incredibly common and destructive event on Maryland roads, is not a collision claim. It is a comprehensive claim. This is one of the most misunderstood facts in auto insurance, and knowing it makes you smarter than half the drivers out there. Think of comprehensive as your act of God and bad luck coverage. You park your car at the mall, and someone keys the entire side of it. That's comprehensive. A massive thunderstorm rolls through, and a heavy branch from an old oak tree crashes down onto your roof. That's comprehensive. Your car gets stolen from your driveway in the middle of the night. Comprehensive. A freak hailstorm turns your hood into a golf ball. Comprehensive. Like collision, comprehensive coverage also has a deductible, and it works the exact same way. You choose an amount, say $250, and you pay that portion of the repair cost first. Often, people choose a lower deductible for comprehensive than they do for collision. Why? Because comprehensive claims are often for things like a cracked windshield. Many Maryland insurance companies offer a $0 or a $50 glass deductible, making it incredibly cheap and easy to get your windshield replaced without a big out-of-pocket expense. Now you might be thinking, okay, these both sound really useful, but are they required? And the answer is no. And yes, the state of Maryland does not legally require you to carry collision or comprehensive coverage. But if you have a loan on your car or if you are leasing it, the bank or finance company, the lien holder, absolutely will. Why? Because until you pay off that loan, the car isn't technically yours. It's the bank's asset. It's their collateral. They are requiring you to carry collision and comprehensive to protect their investment. If you get into an accident and total the car without that coverage, you still owe the bank the rest of the loan, but you have no car and no insurance money to pay them off. That's a disaster for you and a loss for them. So they mandate it in the fine print of your loan agreement. Once you own the car outright, the choice to keep or drop these coverages is entirely yours. Together, the combination of liability, PIP, collision, and comprehensive is what people are usually talking about when they use the slang term full coverage. But you should know, full coverage isn't a real insurance product. It's just a shorthand way of saying a policy has both the required state coverages and the optional physical damage coverages for your own car. So, this brings us to the million-dollar question. When should you consider dropping collision and comprehensive to save money? This is a purely financial decision that depends on three things: the value of your car, the cost of the coverage, and your personal risk tolerance. The key is to understand that insurance companies pay for damages based on the actual cash value, or ACV, of your vehicle. That's the value of your car the second before the accident occurred. It's what a willing buyer would have paid for it. It is not what you paid for it, and it's not the cost of a brand new one. It's the depreciated, used value. So, let's say you have an older car that's only worth about $4,000. You have a $1,000 collision deductible. This means the absolute maximum your insurance company would ever pay you for that car is $3,000. Now look at your insurance bill. How much are you paying per year just for the collision and comprehensive portion? If it's, say, $600 a year, are you willing to pay $600 to protect a potential $3,000 payout? Maybe. A common financial rule of thumb is this: if the annual cost of your collision and comprehensive premium is more than 10% of your car's value, it's time to seriously consider dropping it. In our example, 10% of the car's value is $400. Since you're paying $600, which is more than that, it might be financially prudent to drop the coverage, bank the savings, and accept the risk that if you total the car, you'll have to replace it on your own dime. This is a personal decision. If that $4,000 car is your only way to get to work, and you don't have savings to buy another one, keeping the coverage might be worth the peace of mind. But if you have a healthy emergency fund, self-insuring an older, low-value vehicle is often the smartest financial move. So you've now protected yourself, your passengers, and even your own car from just about every physical threat imaginable. You're covered if you cause an accident, and you're covered if a tree falls on your car. But we've still left one massive, terrifying hole in your armor. What happens when the other guy is at fault, but his cheap state minimum policy can't even begin to cover your serious injuries? What happens if the person who hits you is one of the estimated 1 in 8 drivers on the road with no insurance at all? Are you on the hook for your own medical bills beyond your PIP limit? Who pays for your lost wages when you can't work for 6 months? For that, you need a type of coverage that acts as a secret weapon, a safety net that protects you from the very people who refuse to protect others. And it's arguably the most important coverage you can buy. It's called uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. And it is not an optional add-on for the cautious. It is the single most important line item on your policy for protecting you and your family from financial ruin. Let's be brutally honest. You can do everything right. You can be the safest driver on the road. You can stop at every yellow light, use your turn signal a mile before your turn, and leave a 6-second following distance. But none of that matters when a driver with no insurance, no assets, and no regard for the rules runs a red light and plows into your car. According to the Insurance Research Council, about 1 in 8 drivers on the road in the United States is uninsured. That's nearly 13%. In Maryland, that number is even higher, hovering around 14%. Think about that. The next time you're sitting at a traffic light and 10 cars pass by, statistically, at least one of them has no insurance at all. They are rolling financial time bombs. If they hit you, they have no ability to pay for the damage they cause. They can't cover your wrecked car, your hospital bills, or the salary you lose while you're recovering. So what happens? Without this specific coverage, the answer is simple: you pay. You pay for everything. You drain your savings account to cover your medical deductibles. You burn through your paid time off and then get no paycheck. You might even have to sue the other driver, but what are you going to get? You can't get blood from a stone. A court judgment against someone with no money is just a worthless piece of paper. This is where uninsured motorist coverage, or UM, becomes your hero. It's insurance you buy for yourself to cover your losses when you're hit by someone who has no insurance. Your own insurance company essentially steps into the shoes of the at-fault, uninsured driver. They pay for your medical expenses, your lost wages, and yes, even for your pain and suffering, up to the limits you selected on your own policy. Let's walk through a scenario. You're driving home from work on the Baltimore Beltway. Traffic is heavy. Someone weaving through lanes at high speed clips your rear bumper, sending you spinning into the guardrail. It's a classic hit and run. They speed off and you never get their license plate. Your car is totaled, and you have a broken arm and severe whiplash, requiring months of physical therapy. Who pays? The driver is gone. They are, for all intents and purposes, a ghost. An uninsured motorist. Your personal injury protection will cover the first $10,000 of your medical bills and lost wages, as we discussed. But your medical bills are $30,000, and you're going to miss 2 months of work, losing another $8,000 in salary. That leaves you with a $28,000 hole. Without coverage, that hole is your problem. With coverage, your own insurance company steps up and covers that remaining $28,000. They make you whole again, because you had the foresight to protect yourself from the ghosts on the road. That's uninsured motorist. But what about its twin, underinsured motorist or UIM? This one is just as important but a little more subtle. This coverage protects you when the at-fault driver does have insurance, but they only bought the bare minimum required by law. In Maryland, the minimum bodily injury liability a person can carry is $30,000 per person and $60,000 per accident. $30,000. Let me ask you this. If you were seriously injured in a car accident, do you think $30,000 would be enough to cover it all? A single night in a hospital can cost that much. A surgery can cost far more. And that doesn't even touch lost wages or the long-term impact on your life. So let's change our scenario. This time, the driver who hits you doesn't flee. They pull over. They're apologetic. They have insurance. You feel a wave of relief. But then you find out they have a state minimum policy. Your injuries are severe. After the ambulance, the emergency room, surgery on your leg, and follow-up care, your total damages, including medical bills, 6 months of lost income and pain and suffering, are valued at $200,000. The at-fault driver's insurance company writes you a check for their policy limit, $30,000. That's all they are legally required to pay. So where does the other $170,000 come from? Again, you can sue the driver, but if they only had a minimum policy, it's highly unlikely they have $170,000 in assets for you to take. This is the gap. This is the financial canyon that underinsured motorist coverage is designed to fill. If you had UIM coverage with a limit of, say, $250,000, your own insurance company would step in and pay that $170,000 difference. They bridge the gap between the at-fault driver's pathetic policy and the actual cost of your suffering. In Maryland, these two coverages, uninsured and underinsured, are bundled together. You buy them as a single package. So the big question is, how much should you get? This is where people make a catastrophic mistake. They often carry high limits to protect others, but the lowest limits possible to protect themselves. This is completely backward. Here is the single best piece of advice you will get about this coverage. Your uninsured/underinsured motorist limits should, at a minimum, mirror your bodily injury liability limits. Think about the logic. If you chose to carry $250,000 in liability coverage to protect a complete stranger you might accidentally hit, why on earth would you choose to protect yourself and your own family with only the state minimum $30,000? Does a stranger's financial well-being matter more than your own? Of course not. You are insuring yourself against the worst-case scenario. You are protecting your life savings, your home, and your family's future from the irresponsibility of others. This is not the place to cut corners. If you have 100/300/50 in liability, you should have 100/300 in UM/UIM coverage. If you have 250/500/100, you need 250/500 in UM/UIM. It's that simple. Now, you might be thinking this sounds expensive. It's not. Because the odds of you being in an accident where you are not at fault and the other driver is uninsured or underinsured are lower than the odds of you causing an accident yourself, this coverage is remarkably affordable. The cost to increase your UM/UIM limits from the state minimum to a robust $250,000 or $500,000 is often a tiny fraction of your total premium. We're talking about a few extra dollars a month to add hundreds of thousands of dollars in protection. It is the single best value in auto insurance. There's one final layer to this called stacking. If you have more than one vehicle on your policy, Maryland law allows you to stack your UM/UIM coverage. Let's say you have 2 cars and each has $100,000 in UM coverage. Normally, if you're in an accident, you can only access the $100,000 limit for the car you were driving. But if you pay a slightly higher premium for stacked coverage, you can combine the limits. In this case, you would have $200,000 in available coverage. For families with multiple cars, stacking is a powerful way to multiply your protection for a very small additional cost. So let's put it all together. We've built a fortress. Your liability coverage is the outer wall, protecting your assets from others. Your collision and comprehensive are the guards on the wall, protecting the value of your vehicle. Your PIP is the medic inside, providing immediate first aid. And your UM/UIM coverage? That's the reinforced steel door to the keep. It's the last and strongest line of defense, protecting you and your family from the most unpredictable and dangerous threats on the road. Now that we've built the fortress around your finances, what about the smaller, everyday inconveniences? The flat tires, the dead batteries, the rental car you need after a crash? These might seem small, but they can be major headaches. In our final part, we'll cover the convenient add-ons that complete your policy and tie everything together into a perfect, personalized plan. Let's start with the one that saves you from being trapped at home: rental reimbursement. Imagine this: you're in a not-at-fault accident. The other driver's insurance is handling your repairs, but it's taking forever. Their adjuster is slow, the body shop is backed up. You're without a car for 3 weeks. The other insurance company might pay for your rental, but only for the time the car is actually being repaired, not the weeks it sat waiting for parts or approvals. What do? This is where your own rental reimbursement coverage becomes a hero. For just a few dollars a month, it gives you a safety net. It typically provides a certain amount per day, say $30, $40, or $50, up to a maximum limit, like $900 or $1,500. This means while your car is out of commission, you can get a rental and keep your life moving. Get to work, pick up the kids, go to the grocery store, without paying hundreds or even thousands of dollars out of your own pocket. It's a small price for maintaining your freedom. Next up is its trusty sidekick: roadside assistance, or towing in labor. We've all felt that stomach-dropping moment. A flat tire on the shoulder of the Baltimore Beltway during rush hour. A dead battery in a freezing parking garage in January. Locking your keys in the car right before an important meeting. These aren't accidents, so your collision coverage won't help. But a single call to a tow truck can cost you $100, $200 or more. Roadside assistance on your policy often costs less than $20 for an entire year. For that tiny price, you get a 24/7 hotline that will dispatch someone to jump your battery, change your flat, bring you a gallon of gas, or tow you to the nearest repair shop. It transforms a day-ruining disaster into a manageable inconvenience. It's one of the best bang-for-your-buck coverages you can buy, pure and simple. Now for those of you who've put a little extra love into your ride, we're talking about custom parts and equipment coverage. Did you install a thumping new sound system? What about those expensive custom rims and tires? A special paint job or a vinyl wrap? Here's a hard truth: your standard comprehensive and collision policy will not cover the full value of those upgrades. They'll pay to replace your car with a factory stock equivalent. All that money you invested in making your car yours? Gone. Custom parts and equipment, or CPE coverage, fixes this. It's an add-on that specifically ensures those aftermarket modifications. You declare the value of your upgrades, and the insurance company will cover them in the event of a theft or a total loss. If you've customized your vehicle, this isn't a luxury. It's an absolute necessity to protect your investment. And while we're on the topic of specific protections, let's talk about glass. Maryland roads, like any, have their share of trucks kicking up rocks and debris. A tiny stone can lead to a giant crack across your windshield. With a standard comprehensive claim, you'd have to pay your deductible, say $500, just to replace a windshield that might cost $700. It hardly seems worth it. That's why many carriers offer a full glass or zero deductible glass option. For a small additional premium, you can get your windshield repaired or replaced without paying any deductible at all. Considering modern windshields often contain expensive sensors for safety systems, a single replacement can be shockingly costly. This little add-on provides incredible peace of mind every time you hear that dreaded thwack of a rock hitting the glass. But now we need to talk about the single most important add-on for anyone with a car loan or a lease. This is the one that can save you from financial ruin. It's called gap insurance. And the gap it covers is terrifying. Let's say you bought a new car 2 years ago for $30,000. You still owe $22,000 on your loan. One day, someone runs a red light and your car is totaled. It's a total loss. Your insurance company does its assessment. They determine the actual cash value, the depreciated market value, of your 2-year-old car is now only $18,000. They write you a check for $18,000. But wait, you still owe the bank $22,000. So you have to take that entire check, hand it over to the bank, and then you still have to write another check for $4,000 out of your own savings. You are now $4,000 in debt, with no car to show for it. That is the gap. It's the gap between what you owe and what the car is worth. Gap insurance pays that difference. In our example, it would have paid that $4,000 for you, clearing your debt and allowing you to start fresh. If you are leasing or financing a vehicle, especially with a low down payment, you absolutely must ask about gap insurance. So let's put this all together. We've journeyed through every layer of a Maryland auto policy, from the legal minimums to the robust protections, from protecting others to protecting yourself, your passengers, and your vehicle. How do you build the perfect policy from all these pieces? Let's create a driver. We'll call her Priya. Priya lives in Columbia and commutes to her job in Annapolis. She drives a 3-year-old Honda CR-V that she's still paying off. She's a safe driver but knows that I-97 can be unpredictable. What does her ideal policy look like? First, liability. The state minimums of 30/60/15 are not enough for her. With her stable job and savings, she has assets to protect. She opts for 100/300/100. This protects her from a lawsuit wiping out her financial future if she causes a serious accident. Second, PIP. She's in Maryland, so she takes the full $2,500 in personal injury protection. It's no fault, it's immediate, and it's a fantastic benefit for the cost. Third, uninsured/underinsured motorist. Priya is smart. She knows that her good coverage doesn't matter if the person who hits her has none. She matches her UM/UIM limits to her liability limits. 100/300. She is now protecting herself from irresponsible drivers, as well as she protects others from herself. Fourth, her own vehicle. Because she has a loan, her lender requires her to have collision and comprehensive. She wants to keep her premium reasonable, so she chooses a $1,000 deductible. She knows she can afford to pay that amount if something happens, and in exchange, her monthly rate is lower. And finally, the add-ons we just discussed. Her commute is essential for her job, so she adds rental reimbursement. She wants the $50 a day option to ensure she can get a comparable SUV if hers is in the shop. She adds roadside assistance because the low annual cost is worth the peace of mind. And most critically, because her car is only 3 years old, she knows she's likely upside down on her loan. She adds gap insurance. It's non-negotiable for her. Priya's policy is now complete. It's not the cheapest plan she could find. It's the smartest plan for her specific life. It's a carefully constructed shield, tailored to her car, her commute, her finances, and her peace of mind. And that is the power you now hold. After this journey, you are no longer just a driver buying a required product. You are an educated consumer who understands the mechanics of your financial protection. You understand that your auto insurance policy isn't a bill. It's one of the most important documents you own, standing between you and a potential catastrophe. So here is your final mission, your call to action. Sometime this week, I want you to go find your own auto insurance policy. Look for the declarations page. It's the summary of everything you're paying for. Read through it line by line. Look at your liability limits. Are they high enough to protect everything you've worked for? Check your PIP. Look at your deductibles. Do you have uninsured motorist coverage? And does it match your liability? Do you have a car loan but no gap insurance? You now have the knowledge to spot the weaknesses in your own armor. Use it. Call your agent. Ask them questions. Don't ask, how can I get cheaper insurance? Ask, how can I be better protected? You may find that for just a few dollars more a month, you can close a gap in your coverage that could have cost you tens of thousands of dollars. This knowledge is your power. The worst possible time to learn what's in your insurance policy is on the side of the road, right after a crash. The best time is right now. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Maryland auto insurance. Drive safe, stay covered, and take control.